This is a quick tutorial on how to use Vernier Graphical Analysis to create graphs. First thing you're going to need to do is open up the app, which I have down here on the bottom. Once you open it up, you've got some different options. You're going to go to Manual Entry. Now you've got the blank graph and the data set over on the right side. You should have your data probably written out somewhere, so you're going to need to manually enter those data values in. Your different quantities that you have. What you're going to type in the X column is going to be the independent variable, and what you type in the Y column is going to be the dependent variable. Your independent variable is the one that you intentionally change as you do the experiment. The dependent variable is kind of the outcome variable. So I have a set of data. I'm going to type those values in. I tap on that first box in the X column and I just type. And then I can tab or hit return to go across and type the next. And so on, I type the values. Notice as you're typing the values, the data points are appearing on the graph at the same time. So now I have my data values typed. Now I need to focus on formatting the graph. A properly formatted graph is going to have titles on each of the axes and an overall title. So to be able to get the title on the axis right next to the X in the data table, I've got 3 dots. I'm going to click on those and I'm going to hit column options. Tapping on where the X is, I'm going to type in what the title of that data is, and on the X-axis I have data that is dealing with distance stretched. I'm going to put in my units and then apply, and the same way I'm going to click on my Y, and that data I have potential energy. And my symbol for the units, which are joules. Now those appeared both in my columns on my data table, and they also appeared on the graph. Now to be able to put in an overall title, down in the lower left corner you have a small graph that has 3 dots and a curve on it. If you click on that, then we can go to Edit Graph Options at the very bottom. And that will allow you to type in an overall title. That overall title is generally in the format of Y versus X, the quantities. So my Y quantity is potential energy versus my X quantity, which is distance stretched. So now my graph is formatted. I do need a trend line. I'm going to click on that same graph button on the bottom left, and I want to apply a curve fit. You can see in the background, it automatically defaults to a linear. That linear doesn't look like it matches the data very well. So you've got all kinds of different options when you click on that pull down arrow by linear. I'm going to try a power. That looks reasonably close to my data point, so I'm going to apply it. This box that the equation appears in, you can grab hold of that and move that off of your graph. And in that box, you have the values for the equation. At the bottom, you also have an RMSE, root mean square error. The closer that value is to 0, the better the line fits your data points. Now, you need to remember when you're selecting a relationship, it's not a connect the dots. You're not trying to find a relationship that goes through every single one of your dots, because you probably have some measurements that are not perfectly precise. But this line does represent the quantities of potential energy and distance stretched. And then it has a low RMSE value, closer to 0, the better the match is. So I'm going to go with that relationship. Now my graph and my data table are completed. If you're doing a lab report, you're going to need to place those in the lab report. So I'm going to screen capture my graph and my data table, pressing the power button and the home button at the same time. And I'm going to edit that to zoom in just on the graph and the data table. That looks good. And then I'm going to save that to photos. I have open in the background the lab report that I would be working on, and I'm going to add that image into lab report. Now I have the full data table and I have the full graph. I have calculations and the other parts of the lab report. So that's the basics of using graphical analysis to create a properly formatted graph. Ponder physics.